For most of my life, I thought astrology was completely absurd. I considered myself a rational woman of science. I thought it's ridiculous that you could boil the billions of people in the world down into 12 categories that would somehow magically align with their birthdays. Then one day, a dear friend of mine insisted on giving me a little astrology reading. The chart reflected things about my life that completely shocked me, things I barely knew about myself. I got a taste for how vast and complex this art truly is. The experience shook me to my core. It sent me down a rabbit hole that I have never returned from. The deeper I looked, the more real it became. Welcome to Promethea Astrology. My name is Aleena, and I'm a full-time astrologer with a physics BS from Yale. My mission is to build astrological community and fluency, and I help people understand who they are, trust their timing, and understand their patterns and cycles. In this video, I want to share a little bit about how I went from physics to astrology, dig into my astrological philosophy and approach, and explain what you can expect from readings with me. Timestamps are below. Use them if you need them. So how could one love science and be an astrologer? Well, I have felt deeply connected to the stars since I was a small child. I come from one of the best cities in the world for stargazing, Tucson, Arizona, so I spent many a summer's night laying on huge slabs of rocks, staring out into space, looking at the stars. I've been asking questions about the ultimate nature of the universe for as long as I can remember. How does light work? What is electricity really? How big is space? It wasn't until my junior year in high school that I learned there was actually a name for everything I had ever wanted to know about: physics. I completed my physics BS at Yale in 2016. I got a full ride, tuition, travel, study abroad, everything covered. While I feel incredibly lucky for that opportunity, I also felt really lonely at Yale. I assumed that my peers would also be motivated by a profound longing to understand the secrets of the universe, but I found that most were driven by a simple talent for problem solving or aspirations to apply their quantitative reasoning skills in finance. In every physics class I took, I would ask myself, from electrodynamics to quantum mechanics, if this is the nature of the universe, then what does that tell us about human nature? Because of course we are of the universe. We share the same nature. I was in it for the poetry, the metaphor, the symbolism, and I turned out to be mostly alone in that approach. But while I was at Yale, I tried to learn everything. Not just physics, but philosophy, chemistry, biology, linguistics, religious studies, computer science. I wanted to understand every way of knowing. What I discovered is that science is just one way of knowing. Science is not perfect. In fact, science has been wrong on many occasions in serious ways over the course of its history, often blind to its own cultural biases. I started feeling more and more disenchanted by science the more I learned about its cultural history and context. But I still had a thesis to write, so I decided to focus on cosmology, the practice of using stars to understand the universe's past and predict its future. Little foreshadowing there. In my introduction, I actually addressed how everything I was about to cover in my thesis could be completely incorrect because it rested on philosophical premises about the universe that may not actually be true. I asserted that this cosmology is not more valid than the cosmology of other cultures and peoples. Becoming an astrologer has felt like coming home, like stepping into an identity that was always mine but I didn't have a name for or knowledge of. I have been abstracting human nature from the movements of stars and cosmic happenings since college. It has been so comforting for me to realize that my impulse towards interpreting everything I learned in physics symbolically wasn't some far-out delusion, but in fact a practice that has been happening across cultures for thousands of years. Now I have an established astrology practice as a certified Hellenistic astrologer, and I want to tell you a little bit more about what that means, because it's a little bit different than you might be familiar with. There are many different approaches to astrology. Most people are acquainted with modern psychological astrology, which takes your birth chart as a map of your inner landscape. Every symbol reflects internal states, your character, your personality, your psychology. Ancient Hellenistic astrologers had a different approach. They understood the chart to be both a reflection of your character and also an indication of events that would happen external to you, different people in your life, or things that would occur. I use both of these approaches because in my experience, they both work. I'm a part of the traditional revival in astrology, which started around the turn of the century when people discovered these ancient astrological texts that hadn't been translated in hundreds of years. When these texts were translated into English, we gained all of these ancient techniques for predicting the future and understanding astrology that had been lost or forgotten or abandoned by modern astrologers. I have found some of these techniques to be shockingly accurate and became very excited about learning as much as I could. I find these ancient ways of understanding astrology completely fascinating, so this has become my specialty. I specialize in timing, helping people understand their patterns and the cycles of their lives to get a clearer sense of what might be coming up. I have a particular passion for working with healers, creatives, and change makers, and people who understand the relationship between inner and outer world transformation. I'm also interested in the astrology of parents and children, looking at how the birth charts of parents and children activate each other, and looking at what we inherit from our parents based on the birth charts. Before I dig into what an astrology reading with me looks like, I also wanted to share a little bit about my philosophy around astrology and the way that I understand it, because I think this is actually maybe just as important as the reading itself. I enjoy working with people from all walks of life and with all different types of relationships to spirituality. I do not take a dogmatic approach. I view astrology as a symbolic practice, and symbolism is very real. But this reality is not singular. The transformational potential of astrology is latent in the multivalent nature of the symbols. There are many different stories you could tell within a single birth chart, and although we're living one version of that, there are other timelines, other possibility, other levels to how we live that out. I believe that you are your own best medicine. The meaning that I make out of these symbols as I connect the story of your life to your birth chart is not nearly as important or impactful as the meaning that you make out of them. This is also why I love teaching astrology workshops and helping people to learn how to interpret their own birth charts, and why my mission is related to building astrological community and fluency. The more you know about astrology, the more powerful it becomes. I believe that bringing awareness to the story we've been telling about our lives, the patterns we live out, is the first step in being able to change course. I believe that it is possible to live a life that's out of alignment with your true nature, and that bringing awareness to the truth of who you are can help your life unfold into your highest purpose with ease. I see astrology as a tool for recognizing our strengths and challenges, integrating our shadows, and developing compassion for people different from us. Hence, astrology can dramatically improve our relationships and give us a language for articulating and validating our needs. I also understand that there will be things that happen in our lives that are outside of our control. I don't take a completely deterministic approach, and I don't believe that if we simply live out the highest vibration of our chart that bad things won't happen to us. The chart can also reflect external circumstances that we couldn't have changed. Overall, although I do believe there's something very real about astrology, I try to hold it loosely, not gripping too tightly to any one interpretation or prediction. I take a strength-based approach and always try to highlight what I see to be the most positive manifestation or constructive possibility that I see in a chart, while also remaining honest about the shadowy difficulties that are intrinsic to the human experience too. More than anything, I see astrology as an incredible tool for self-reflection and building self-awareness. And it is this awareness that allows us to truly unlock our free will and volitional potential. Okay, so what does a reading actually look like with me? I have two different styles of readings, a 60-minute reading and a 90-minute reading. In the 60-minute reading, we map out your life and personality through the lens of your birth chart. I'll walk you through the basics of your chart, and then we focus in on whatever areas of life feel most alive and pressing for you right now. Purpose, who you are, career, relationships, anything like that. Or if you prefer, I can simply highlight what stands out the most to me as an astrologer, and we can go from there. The 60-minute reading is a great option if you are someone who struggles to know who you are, what your purpose is, just want to get a basic understanding of your astrology, or look into what your strengths and weaknesses might be. We can take a look at what the stars suggest the answers to some of those questions might be. Then there's the 90-minute Natal and Timing Reading. So this reading includes everything from the 60-minute reading, and then we also take a look at your timing, the past and future. What might be coming up for you? What cycles are you in? And when can you expect your current circumstances to shift? We can look at particularly constructive or challenging periods that might lie ahead. You can get sort of a forecast of your year ahead. What might be some better or worse times for different areas of your life, and what is coming up for you in the astrology. And we can also look at some of the longer, bigger patterns and cycles of your life. This reading is for you if you're at a crossroads, navigating a major life transition, or if you simply want to understand the larger arc of what you're moving through in your life. This is a good choice if there are specific dates that you want to discuss about maybe specific events that happened to you in the past or that you have coming up in the future. In either case, I come prepared. I spend hours going through your birth chart and writing a very long write-up that I will email to you before the reading that you can look through to see if anything stands out for you. You could print it out before we meet so that you could take notes on it, but also if you do an online reading with me, then you'll receive a recording of the consultation as well, so you can always refer back to that if you don't feel like taking notes. But you'll have a record of all the different analysis that I perform. I approach the astrology readings as a dialogue, not a monologue. So it's very conversational. And the more that you share about your life beforehand, the more I can kind of connect the dots. And also throughout the reading, the more that you tell me about your life and share with me about who you are, the more accurately I can connect things and start to make some predictions given the way different pieces of who you are and what you've experienced correlate with your birth chart. So now I'll get into some common questions people ask. For instance, do I need to believe in astrology for this to work? And I would say the answer is no. Astrology works whether or not you believe in it, but also even if you are sort of skeptical or not really sure about astrology, it's still an incredibly powerful way to reflect on who you are and what you've been through regardless. And just an extremely useful framework for understanding human nature. And regardless of what you believe in, I find that usually a conversation about someone's astrology will illuminate certain things that they may not have even been aware of about themselves, but that does really resonate. So it can be extremely interesting and valuable regardless of what you believe. You might ask, what's the difference between an astrology reading with you and just reading my general horoscope? And the answer is general horoscopes are written for only your sun sign. So this would be like trying to understand a tapestry by looking at a single thread. The totality of your chart is extremely complicated, and a reading with me will be much more accurate and resonant than a general horoscope. You'll also be able to ask questions and engage with me in a dialogue around the complexities of who you are and what you've been through. You might ask, what do I need to have ready for a reading? Do I need my exact birth time? And the answer is yes. If you can find your exact birth time, that is definitely preferable. There is a whole lot that gets unlocked when we have the exact birth time that would not be if you don't have it. Of course, there's still a lot that we can dive into even if you don't have the exact birth time. But if you have the chance to find your birth certificate or ask one of your parents, usually if your mother's around to ask, they normally remember, that would be extremely helpful. To pull up your birth chart, I need the time of your birth, the day, and also the place. And with the time, even a couple of minutes off can make a big difference, but also sometimes if you are even an hour or an hour and a half off, sometimes that will not make a big difference. It depends on the exact context of when you were born. But if it's more than 2 hours off, like if it's a rough estimate, then likely it will be an extremely different birth chart that will say very different things. So overall, if you can find the exact birth time, that is extremely valuable. And if not, no big deal. There's still a lot that we can discuss. It's just much more becomes available with the exact birth time. How is this different from a psychic reading or tarot? So a lot of people are confused about what the difference is between astrology and tarot and psychics in general. They all get kind of smooshed together. But the type of astrology that I practice is not a form of divination. It's not information intuited or channeled by me. It is the literal map of the sky at the moment of your birth that I will interpret in a way that is true to the ancient roots of this practice. So it's a little bit less about me and my divine connection or mystical abilities or something, and more about the technical apparatus and skill that comes from being fluent in astrology. Do you offer readings online or in person? Yes, I offer both. At the current moment of this recording, I'm offering in-person astrology readings in Conshohocken and sometimes South Jersey and other pop-up events in the Philadelphia area. So if you're interested in finding me in real life at one of those events, you'll want to follow me on Instagram at Promethea_astrology, where I will regularly post what is happening and update everybody regularly about where I'll be in person. Or you can always book with me online at my website, aleenaglinski.com/astrology, which may be where you're watching this right now. And on my website, there's also a tab that says schedule that will have all of my physical whereabouts if you want to find me in real life there. Can you actually predict my future? Astrology is archetypally predictive, not specifically. We can get a sense of the major themes and sort of vibe that will be coming up in your life, and especially if it's echoing back to past cycles, then we can maybe use that past instance of a reoccurring transit to predict what might happen in that same vein. But I cannot tell you with 100% certainty whether or not something will or will not come to pass. But it can also be sometimes really shocking how close we can sometimes get. But I don't believe that the universe is completely predetermined, so I don't believe that it's possible to really nail things down with an exact concrete specificity. But that's just me. How often should I get a reading? Some people like to get a reading once a year to see what's happening in the year ahead. Some people like to get astrology readings once a month as sort of a more regular check-in and more active form of self-development and reflection. Some people will get an astrology reading once in a lifetime at a real major crossroads or pivotal moment. This will depend on you entirely. No wrong answers. Can I buy an astrology reading as a gift? Yes, you can. There's a link on my website for purchasing gift cards. Or you can just go to aleenaglinski.com/gift-card. This is a really fun, meaningful, memorable, soul-nourishing gift that I definitely recommend. Do you do private events? Yes, I love working bachelorette parties, birthday parties, corporate events, whatever you need. I can offer either a group workshop where we'll come together and learn astrology and connect, or I can do individual, private, one-on-one little 15-minute mini readings for each guest. And it will definitely make your event unforgettable. My rates vary based on the location, how long I'll be there, how many people there will be. So reach out to me via email if you want to share more about what your vision is, what you have going on. I would love to talk to you about how we might collaborate. So to wrap this all up, I started out as a skeptic with a physics degree who thought that astrology was completely absurd. What I found in my first astrology reading changed the trajectory of my entire life. I don't know what you'll find in yours, but I would love to look with you. If you're here on YouTube, you can find the link to book a reading in the description if you want to learn more or check that out. And if you're seeing this on my website, then you already know where to go. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions about anything. I love talking with people about astrology. And I hope all your dreams come true. Take care of yourself. Thank you for being here.